and you were just guilty by association.
That's true.
And
That's true.
yeah, exactly. And you admitted to stabbing somebody in one of these robberies. That
Mhm.
person lived, but you have maintained you did not kill anybody, and you were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole back in February of 1953. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Is
that's
that correct?
correct.
All right, and I'm just curious if you can go into it. What was your trial like? I mean, you're a kid, you're a teenager. What was your trial like back in 1953?
Well, we faced with have three judges, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't have too much recollection of the trial. None part of the sentencing because I wasn't present at the time I was sentenced.
Wow, you weren't present at the trial. You were where you were sentenced. Wow.
Yes,
Oh wow. So you just heard that you got life without parole,
yes.
and what?
And from then until now, I'm still disturbed by that from being in prison so long. And from my family, most of my immediate family all passed. In terms of my immediate family, only two of us still living, and that's me and my baby sister.
Wow. Well, that's. I mean, God, God bless you. Got your baby sister. Is still here. God bless that.
Yes.
Um, I, I'm wondering, can you just tell me what it was like behind bars in the beginning and when you were the 50s, the 60s? I mean, what was when people think prison, they think violence. Were you afraid being behind? What was it like?
No, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid at all from that day until this point of my life, where I was born at in Birmingham, Alabama. And due to the fact that as a kid, I wasn't getting to schooling, so my mother and father decided to bring me to Philadelphia. Okay, so they put me in school. But I was such a slow learner, and it started me out in the seventh grade, but I wasn't able to compete in the seventh grade, so they put me in a special grade. Okay, and until I was arrested. Okay, and that was in 1953. I was arrested in 1953. I was tried in 1953 and was sentenced to the possibility of no parole.
And how was your family? How was your family affected by this when you went behind bars at such a young age?
When they was strictly buried, well, it was a terrible thing, but they wasn't able to live the life that they was living and were able to take care of us, at that particular time. And they was deeply saddened from the time that I met with them in terms of how they would treated each other, how they treated us as kids, you know. And my mother and father, they passed, and that left me, living with as I was living, basically in prison. Okay, and now that I'm here in this interview today, I'm very glad that I'm able to be interviewed so I can express how I feel and how I was thinking at the time of all this was taking place. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad that I'm still living and hoping to live long enough and be as healthy as I possibly am. And there's gonna be more interviews, but I got to get used to this because all this is new to me. You know,
Yes, of course. Of course. No, I understand, sir. I get it. Now, I read when you were incarcerated, you were a janitor, you were a boxer. So how were you getting by the years, the days? What were you doing behind bars to get by?
well, kept myself busy in terms of what you just stated. I took up boxing and doing that kind of thing. You got to be very active, a lot of exercise, you know, and people got interested in me because from being interviewed by some of the people that was handling us as exercise that we was doing, and it was stated to me that I could have been one of the greatest in terms of the ability that I was born with. You know what I mean? And I was very proud to hear that because when they started saying that I could be in the class of Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, and some of the greatest of the world, then that brought me to my attention that I missed so much. You know what I mean? From
Mm,
the time that I
mm.
was born all the way up to the time that I was sharing here with you today.
One thing that's interesting about your case is that I believe you were offered parole, and you said no because you didn't want to be, still tied to the system. Can you explain that a little bit? Why you said no to parole?
As time went on, okay, and I learned more about how I was sentenced, what had been taking place, and my case didn't call for that. Okay, and I'm a prime example that it wasn't called for that because I wouldn't have been sentenced the way that I should have been sentenced back there in the year of 1953. Okay, and I was wrongly evicted, no doubt about that. And I felt as though that I served enough time that at my thinking of it or my views of it, I didn't deserve to be paroled. I didn't deserve to be with probation or no other contact in terms. I wanted to be free from all that. And reason that was one of my main reasons that I felt as though it was better for me to remain in prison than to go out like a lot of other juvenile life who was going out. And the reason I felt for that, I would be able to get more consideration by remaining in prison. Okay, and nothing for certain, but one thing for sure, I knew I would be more safer in prison after being in prison so long, and the change have changed so much. I wouldn't been able to cope after my mother and my father had died and being around people that I knew because every day some news come up, okay, and facing something new every day that I didn't really understand, and some of the things I still don't understand. And there's going to be things in the future that I'm not going to be able to understand. But I'm so glad that Almighty God gave me the strength, the knowledge that I do have. You understand some things that a lot of people don't understand. Is that's not as fortunate that I have been. Some have and some ain't having. But in terms of blacks, Spanish, Puerto Rico, it just seems as though that black kids don't have the opportunities that some kids do in terms of being a different race. It causes them to get in more trouble, okay, because they're out on the streets, okay, and church is not like it used to be teaching kids. The schools is not like they used to be in terms of teaching kids.
I appreciate all this wisdom you're giving us. We need to hear from you. You have a lot of wisdom. And I want to make sure folks understand that what happened was the life sentence you were given as a juvenile, it was considered grossly unjust, and it was corrected with the help of the Defender Association. So you may not have the exonerated label just yet, but I hope that you get that. I hope that you get that eventually. Hope that happens
I'm looking
eventually,
forward
because
to it.
yeah,
Yeah,
because clearly,
I hope to.
yeah, clearly, it's just crazy. And like I said, it's great that you said, hey, here's what happened, but I didn't kill anybody, and this system had you in there for 68 years. Is there anything you want to leave us with, Mr. Ligon, as far as people who might be going through this right now? They might have family who they feel like are behind bars wrongfully. They're losing hope. Anything you want to just leave us with, for folks who may be going through what you went through behind bars?
Yes, number one is this. I would like for prisoners to know, okay, it's all right to contact somebody, starting with the media. Don't be afraid to talk to the media like I did. You'll be able to help yourself by telling your story, okay? And a lot of people in prison, especially grown up, okay, got good stories to tell, but it just so happens that they don't want to talk to the community because they think it's going to be harmful for them. But the media can help you, as they did me, by telling your story. Please tell your story as you know your story. Nobody do not know your story the way you know your story. Okay? This is what I would like to end this conversation with in terms of this interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Again, you were behind bars for 68 years. You were released last month. You are 83 years old. You are a warrior. I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's so important. Thank you so much, sir. I'm so happy you're here, and spending some time with me on the Clay Kane Show.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.